Hi, this is Lucia with The Art of Love. This week, I would like to talk about what is actually happening when you become crazy in love, why people act crazy when they are in love or in a relationship or dating. So, if I were to ask you, what would you do if you were dating someone and you found out they were cheating or they were abusive? You would probably say, oh, well, I would never put up with that. I would leave. And most people would answer it like that. However, what people say they're going to do and what people actually do when they are in the situation is usually not the same thing. Because right now, you're coming from the logical part of your brain. You're not in that situation, unless, of course, you are. And so, of course, looking at it logically, you say, of course, I would never put up with anyone cheating on me or being abusive or et cetera, et cetera. However, when you are in that situation and there's all these emotions taking over, what happens is that your logical brain gets pushed aside and the reptilian part, the most primitive part of your brain, takes over. It basically hijacks your logical brain. So, to take a line from a movie, it basically says, I am the captain now, the captain of your relationship. And it makes decisions based on survival rather than logic. That's why when you see people making very illogical, irrational decisions, it's because they're not coming from their logic. Their brain has basically been hijacked. And then they end up writing me, and I answer their letters or their questions. Because the primitive part of the brain is just interested in survival. It has zero IQ, and so for women, a fear that comes from back when we were cavemen and cavewomen is of being left, because women could not survive by themselves in those times. And so if they were shunned by the tribe or they were left by a man, then that would probably mean death. And so that has been carried on, and that's why it feels like a death. If a man leaves, you think, oh my God, because you're not actually thinking. It's the primitive part of your brain that's interested in survival, and so it tries to hold on, like, no, you can't leave because I won't survive. Whereas if you look at it logically, you go, well, of course I can survive. What am I thinking? And for men, it's about, quote unquote, spreading the seed. So you need to spread your seed in order to keep the race going, and also to have a family so that there will be someone to take care of you when you're older. And so that's how men are programmed. And so when a woman leaves, the primitive part of the brain thinks, no, I can't let her leave. I won't be able to continue the race. I won't be able to have a family. She can't leave. So that's what the primitive part of the brain, which has no IQ, is thinking. Whereas again, now listening to it logically, you think, well, that's not true. So what is the answer to this? What can you do? Well, as usual, knowledge is power. So now you're aware of the situation, you're aware of what's happening, you're aware that your brain is being basically hijacked, and you can make changes so that you act instead of react. That means you think before making any moves, and you don't act out of fear, which rarely leads to anything good anyway. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. This takes practice and time. Usually, as you make mistakes, you do a course correction. So you were in one relationship or in one dating situation, and you messed up because you came from your reactive brain, from your fearful part of your brain, and you go, okay, I'm not going to do that again. Or even if I do feel that fear, I'm not going to act, because it's going to come up. I mean, your logical brain will get hijacked, but now that you're aware, you can take back control so that it's only hijacked for a very small amount of time rather than weeks or days or months. And that way, when the primitive brain tries to take over your relationship and says, I am the captain now, you can say, oh no, you're not. So, if you have any questions or comments about this, you can contact me at theartoflove.net, where I am also available for private coaching. If you're listening to this on iTunes, I would appreciate if you would rate and review the podcast. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please subscribe. And finally, remember that love inspires, empowers, uplifts, and enlightens.